Happy Fantasy Friday. It's time for book club. We are Lindsey,
Kelly,
and Katharine, and this is the Banner and Bookmarks podcast. We are three book besties diving into romantasy with unhinged theories and a bit of spice.
heads up, this podcast contains spoilers. If you would like a spoiler-free introduction to the book, go back and listen to episode 1, our world-building episode for this series. But for now, we will be covering all things Quicksilver, and it will absolutely be full of spoilers.
So pour yourself a drink, come escape reality with us, and let's talk about books.
This week, we are covering the 3 bonus chapters. Finally! These are published on Callie Hart's website. There's so much information, so much important backstory in these chapters, and we feel they are super important for character development, so we're going to cover them.
There are also a ton of Easter eggs that we feel like are looking forward to Brimstone, so we are so excited to point those out and talk about all those Easter eggs too.
Yep. And I will say that July 1st, we're also getting the Audible recordings of Kingfisher's point of view chapters. So if you are an audiobook listener, definitely check that out. You can pre-order it. Last time I checked, it was like very inexpensive. So get those Kingfisher POV chapters because the narration is incredible.
Anthony Palmini reading them to you are going to be so much more impactful than us summarizing them on
So
our
true.
podcast.
Yes. Yeah. Get them. I already have my pre-order July 1st. So take a look on Audible. So these 3 bonus chapters, there are 3 parts. Part 1 and 2 are from Kingfisher's perspective at the Battle of Ajun Gate. Lots of nuggets and tidbits in there. Part 3 is also a nice little bonus in Kingfisher's perspective where he's just casually looking for a dress for Saris and Onyx tags along. And there's a couple of things that make you go, what? In that little scene. So we'll talk about it. All right, let's start talking about part 1.
All right, so I think first we should level set. Battle of Ajun Gate took place hundreds of years ago.
Yes.
I don't know if we, remind me ladies, do we know numerically how many hundreds of years ago, or do we just know it's some vague hundreds of years ago?
We had made a guess before, so we don't officially know, but we had made a guess before that it was about, I think, 400 years, because there is a part in the book where Kingfisher says that something really important happened 400 years ago, and we're guessing that this is that important thing, but we don't really know that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yep.
What we find out in this one is super important. We find out who is a member of the Lupo Paralia.
Mm-hmm.
8 members.
Yeah, I know we had talked about this if we couldn't remember if it was like 7 + 1 or 8 + 1 with Kingfisher, but it is that Kingfisher in this instance is one of the 8.
Yeah, so we get the quote from Kingfisher where he actually tells us who all of the Lupo are. Lindsey, keep count for us, please. So he says, all of them are with me tonight. Ever-present Renfis, of course. His twin sister, Nimirelle, wearing an easy smile. Danya, with her blonde hair flowing in a pale river down her back. Corix, they're new, seated and silent in the snow, their hands resting on top of their fighting leathers. Foley, grinning like a rake, bouncing on the balls of his feet. Vashgideon, with his shock of moonlight hair and his pale white eyes. Dark-haired Lorith, the newest member of the Lupo Proalia, chewing on his bottom lip. So, there they are, the 8.
The 8.
So it is interesting to note real quick that when we had previously talked about the numbers and we were like, is it 7, is it 8, whatever, our count may have been right because at that time, there are members of the Lupo that are no longer with them. So right now in these bonus chapters, it is 8 total, including Kingfisher. But when we discussed it, it is a little different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and sad.
Oh, God. This chapter, honestly, these 2 chapters were devastating. I cried.
Yeah.
Real hard in these chapters.
Yeah. So we have some new people that we hadn't met before. So we'll kind of learn more about them. And then we have some people that, why haven't we heard their names and met
Mhm.
them where we are in our current storyline.
No clue where they are.
Yeah, at the end of this, we're going to know Morel, Corix, Foley, Bashgideon. Those are 4 members and 4 names we've never heard before. We will find out the fate of, we can confirm 1 of them, but 3 of them, as of Quicksilver Book 1, we do not know where they are.
Yeah, not for sure. I think one of them, Callie tries to say that they died, but as Catherine always says, no body, no death. So the assumption is that they died, but we don't actually know for sure.
Yeah. And when I read them originally, I was convinced that they were. It wasn't until I think I talked to Catherine about it, and she kind of pointed that out, that the language is a little bit unclear. So it's written that I definitely got that impression. But then when you go back, you go,
right.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Kind of left it open.
So setting the scene, we're at the Battle of Ajun Gate. If you remember the map at the beginning of the book, there's a nice little map, and at the very, very far north is this region. It's labeled as Ajun Gate. It is in the very, very frigid north. It is where these butterflies, these Oshalath, are born, north of Ajun Gate. So we're talking a territory very, very far to the north. It is snowing right now. It is frigid. The gate is open because of a celebration festival that happens once a year for these people that live in this region. And some feeders are on the attack. Not only some feeders, but also dragon, or as Kelly so eloquently pointed out in a previous episode, a giant fucking lizard.
A drake.
So Godzilla.
So Godzilla. Okay. So actually, I don't think that this clip made the cut of the episode. So if you haven't seen it on our Instagram, go look. But we were taking a little break and we were talking about drakes, and Catherine said, I think drakes are dragons without wings. And I didn't mean to be sassy. And I said, oh, so they're lizards. And Catherine had a whole reaction to that, which was hilarious.
Literally my favorite clip of us of all time.
Very funny. So
my whole point in actually bringing that up is, if you Google, right, different types of dragons, wyverns, drakes, right? There's many of them. They have different body formations, and drakes historically are giant but no wings. But this drake here, Omnamshacry, is a drake but flies. He flies. So he's literally a dragon.
Magic?
Yeah.
No magic.
No, he just flies.
He just flies. He has wings. He is flying around. They call him the Drake. One of the names they call him a Drake. But
he does have wings.
But they actually make a point of saying dragons in this world are some of the most evil. They have no magic.
Mm-hmm. They're just big monsters.
Yes. In most fantasy books, right, dragons historically are associated with magic, but in this story, dragons do not have magic. They are associated with everything negative and evil and no magic.
Yeah.
So, Catherine, before we move on, like a minute ago, you were talking about how cold it is and where they were and kind of like setting that scene. And there's a really important quote that I want to read here. So the quote is, as if a promise of what was to come, a frigid wind chased across the mountainside, cutting through my leathers, carrying with it the stench of rotting meat and the tang of brimstone. And in the bonus chapters, there are 12 times that the word brimstone is mentioned, and this is the first one. So right from the beginning, like we talk about Easter eggs, it is right there in your face. I think a couple of paragraphs in, literally, we get brimstone. So I just feel like that scene setting is so important.
Yep.
And
to this and to the rest.
Absolutely. And reminding people, brimstone is one of those rune tattoos on her finger. Obviously, brimstone is also the name of book 2.
I don't know, but like as we read these bonus chapters, there's just so much there.
I know. So I have kind of a maybe unhinged theory here. I know that Katharine and Lindsey have both said that they strongly believe that Brimstone is associated with the dragons. I think we're going to see that in the next book. Katharine's also kind of questioned, are we going to see the dragons return in the next book? Which I also love because we all know that we are dragon girlies. I'm wondering if since Cerys has power with all the alchemical elements, we know that Malcolm points out the runes on her hands, that she has all of them. If Brimstone is associated with the dragons and the dragons are coming back, does that mean that Cerys is going to have any kind of power either over them or control of them or talk to them the way she can talk to the Quicksilver? Like, is there going to be some kind of connection with her and the dragons because of her connection to Brimstone? I don't know.
Do you think that that's why this bonus chapter is important too? Because I think we assume that it's just to show the background of the Lupo and just to show the story of Ajun Gate and Omnamshacry, but maybe there's even a more hidden, deeper meaning to introduce us to dragons. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think it's both. I need to show you the context and what happened so you have a better picture of why we are where we are. And I also think there's a bunch of stuff that's saying this is stuff that might come in the future. And so it's a little bit of both for me.
And Kelly,
Yes.
don't you remember quite recently, in one of our most recent episodes, you mentioned that she is both fae and vampire, and if she has both light and dark magic. And as I just said, dragons are associated with no magic or just pure evil.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there's some correlation with her vampire side and this whatever dark magic vampires had, and maybe that is also why she could control a dark creature like this dragon or like dragons.
I like that theory. Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see. Who knows? We're just guessing that the dragons are coming back. We have no clue, but I mean, I'd love to see it. I'd be very happy if a dragon just shows up. Although I like when the dragons are not evil. I want to be friends with the dragons.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I guess I'll deal with it. I mean, we love the dragons in Lord of the Rings too, even though they're evil. So it's fine.
And so it's funny when I picture Omnamshacry, I picture the dragon from The Hobbit because
do you?
Because he's so evil, and that's the other evil dragon I can associate.
Yeah.
You know? So I always think and his deep voice, which was so well done. Yes.
Smaug.
Yes. So let's talk about Omnamshacry. They describe him
Love it.
pretty evilly. Silent Death, the Drake, Old Blood, Grandfather Ash, and The Lizard by Kelly.
Godzilla.
But I mean, Grandfather Ash, Old Blood, like these are some interesting name choices here. In the bonus chapters, Omnamshacry is listed as one of the very oldest of his kind. And it also mentions that he has his own personal vendetta against the Fae because they, at some point, killed a younger dragon.
Yep.
The last dragon outside of Omnamshacry that existed in existence which was a very young dragon, and if they didn't state it outright, maybe I just got the perception, but smaller also.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yes, that's why he hates them.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget that Bellicon told us that when we see him with Bellicon, he was the last dragon. So
Right.
we know that he's the last of his kind for sure.
You're right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I forgot about that skull at the beginning.
There's so
That
much
was
has
an
happened
Omnamshacry.
since we've seen that skull. I feel like that was months ago.
And we do learn too, like the importance of Ajun. So there's a quote here where he's kind of being flippant. He's like, who cares about the Ajun anyways? They've guarded the gate and prevented untold horrors from spilling into this world for centuries. But so what? Obviously kidding, right? Like stressing the importance of what they're doing and why they're guarding this.
Yep.
So it is terrifying that this gate and this city and these people are the ones that have been basically keeping the evil out of the world for centuries. And now, because of an Omnamshacry, it might fall so easily. So, in all of recorded history, the gate had never once been breached, but because they are celebrating this night, they're leaving the gate open. Terrible choice.
Yep.
And he admits it's a terrible choice. He's like, why on earth? Have a celebration all you want. Why open the gates? And I agree. Like, that's so silly.
Yeah.
So then we get our first instance of the Quicksilver talking to Fisher, which is huge, right? Because we know that Quicksilver talks to Ceres, but we've always wondered how it interacts with Kingfisher throughout the whole book. So now it still tortures him, clearly, but it also just actually talks to him. So we get a great quote: move, you must go, all must move, all must go, together, go. I find it so interesting because I always got the impression that all the Quicksilver did to Kingfisher was to literally just speak nonsense in his head and drive him absolutely insane, right? With visions, with words, with just these collective thoughts always bouncing. But the fact that it can actually speak to him into a singular voice, same as it does to Ceres, and actually give him instructions and tell him what to do, like, that just never even occurred to me that it would be doing that.
So my thought is actually that because throughout all of the interaction we see with the Quicksilver in the bonus chapters is a very different Quicksilver than what is described to us in the actual book.
Yeah.
So I thought that the change actually happened when he was in the labyrinth and when he was with the people of Gilithry.
Oh.
So like here earlier, because remember, this is 400 years before the book, but it's 300 something years before when he goes into the maze. And so I kind of thought that the Quicksilver kind of changes during that time, because we hear a lot of, especially from Renfis in the book, about how Kingfisher is a very different person after he came back, and how, yes, it tortured him, but I saw that as a big shift.
Yeah.
During that time.
Don't they have god swords in this scene?
Yes, they're still active.
So they're still active. So the gods potentially have not fully given up on them yet. And so it would make sense, if that's what you're saying, Lindsey, that we know from the end of the book that when Ceres was talking to the Quicksilver, it was Zareth and the twins the whole time. And so if that's the case, then whoever the god or gods were that were talking to him through this Quicksilver now feel very differently about the Fae and about the warriors potentially than they do when we meet the Quicksilver in the actual chapters of the book. So I think that's a really good point, and
yeah,
we'll probably learn more about that.
And the quote here from Kingfisher's perspective: as always, the rush of voices spoke only to me. I felt the vibration of the Quicksilver in my eye and knew it must be shifting. It wasn't going to let up until I gave it what it wanted. It made ridiculous demands of me. But then it goes on, and they kind of have this back and forth banter a little bit, because he's like, no, I'm not going to leave my men. And the Quicksilver's response is, you are more important than them, more important, most important. So it's still like torturing him and annoying him, so to say, but it's in a much more supportive capacity than what we see in the book.
For sure.
And this is teasing kind of the end of it, but we do know that when Zareth describes Kingfisher as his champion, right, whatever bargain they struck, as of right now and this battle, that bargain has not been struck, and Kingfisher has refused all advances on Zareth's part to come to some sort of agreement. So it could be also, to your point, once he struck that bargain is when that kind of insanity with the Quicksilver could have started happening as well.
So dragons talk, which is super exciting. I love the back and forth between Kingfisher and Omnamshacry here. We also get a quote more about brimstone. So it says molten lava and brimstone is spewing from his jaws. Another clue that maybe dragons will be coming back in book 2. And they say that he's spewing brimstone constantly. So Callie really wants to make sure that we pick up on the connection with brimstone and the dragons.
That's new, isn't it? The concept of, I mean, have you guys ever read that before? To me, fire spews from dragons, but lava,
No,
brimstone,
never.
that's new.
I've never seen that kind of connection before. This is the first book that I've seen it happen. I'm sure it might exist in other fantasy. I haven't read any. So it's a fun twist. And I don't know. I kind of see it as like spewing, but also I'm like, I picture just lava dripping and pouring down his, scary and gross and evil for sure. We also know that the accord between the Fae and the dragon, right, have been held for over 300 years. So why is the dragon attacking here in this moment? What changed? What's going on? Any guesses there?
I mean, Katharine had said something about another dragon being killed.
Yes.
But I don't know where. Do you know where that's
how long ago that
quoted?
Was? It's in part 2. It's
so
in
then
part
why
2.
is it attacking Ajun, though?
Yes.
Like, I can see why he's mad at them for defending, but we don't get the reason of why he's actually attacking the gate. Like, is he literally just taking advantage of the gate being open?
The dragon never states it outright, but I got the impression it's evil, right? She outlines in these bonus chapters, dragons are evil. I got the impression that the dragon was basically like, it knows the feeders are attacking. It knows Malcolm's army is coming to destroy all these people of Ajun. And the dragon says later on, that will be a feast of thousands, which will keep my belly full. So I think, and yes, he knew a dragon had been killed before and he still made this accord with the Fae.
Yeah.
I think he simply decided to side with Malcolm and fill his belly.
Yeah. Like, you know
so
what?
There's no bigger
reason.
It. Yeah, there's no bigger reason. He's just like evil and hungry.
Yeah.
If so,
and leveraging a situation. He's like, you know what? An opportunity presented itself, and so I'm a feast. Maybe.
Yeah.
I also wonder if there's a connection though, because it's Malcolm's horde and Malcolm's army. If Malcolm does have this like death magic and dark magic and dragons are evil, is there any type of accord or agreement or connection with Malcolm and the dragon at all? And would that have maybe pushed him to break the accord with the Fae? Sure. I'm grasping at straws there. Like there's no proof of any of that, but I'm curious if there's, because like you said, why would he choose now? Why would he almost like help out Malcolm in a sense? Because the dragon is obviously taking the focus of Kingfisher and his Lupo away from the feeders, and so they're kind of letting it open. It is a true battle, and they're helping each other out. Whether they do it on purpose or not is the question.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, I feel like it's all just a perfect storm of stuff happening at the same time. Like the feeders are attacking. They are attacking, obviously, because the gate is open for 5 days, which, come on, people. Keep your damn gate closed. It's been guarding the rest of the world for centuries. Okay, maybe it's important, you know? And so then the dragon is just so happened. Like, I think it's all just like this perfect storm of evilness. Yeah. And I think it sets up the Lupo as the true good here, because they are fighting all of the evil at the same time.
Yep. If you had any questions about if they were really good or not, this is the scene that makes you see, oh no, they care about Fae-manity. I got a better word for that.
Is a good word.
Well, and you said feeple earlier. I was like, I don't like the word feeple.
I know.
Feeple is nasty.
As soon as I said feeple, I was like, I'm gonna mute that.
Yeah, feeple is nasty.
Fae-manity. I like Fae-manity. We'll keep
Fae-manity.
it. Yeah.
But Omnamshacry refers to Fisher as using interesting terminology. Cursed born, Fae thing. But then Kingfisher himself muses that, well, a dragon is a curse. Their hearts are hollow, black voids, no good thing could survive. And he didn't have really any kind of sympathy for this kind of evil. So, I mean, we know why the Lupo want to kill the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're just musing on why the dragon is taking advantage of the circumstances.
Mm-hmm. And I want to hear more about
evil.
Yes. And I want to hear more about the cursed born. What do you mean by that? What Is it just because of the Quicksilver?
No, Curseborn. He's referring collectively. Sorry, as you said, it like light bulb.
Oh,
The Fae currently are the descendants of the cursed vampire Fae. So they are born of the cursed, so Curseborn.
got it. There you go. So it's not a Kingfisher specific thing. It is the type of Fae that they are.
Thing. Yes.
The Fae thing. Okay, I like it.
All right, so we've already talked about why the gate is open. We've pretty much summarized all of this. I think it would be interesting to note about the gate being opened, right, is the fact that only a few of Avelia's creatures are impervious to the effects of the iron gate. So the gate itself is made of iron, which is very, very interesting because we talk about a lot of different metals. We talk about silver a lot. Surprisingly, this gate is made of iron, and Fae cannot touch iron. And it is usually only fire sprites that are charged with opening and closing it, simply because whatever power and magic they possess, they can open and close it without physically touching it. Now, the problem that this scene is presenting is the fact that they've called the fire sprites to come and close the gate. They've, sounded the alarm, dragon coming, feeders coming, close your gate, but they're not going to get there in time.
Right.
So
they're off celebrating.
Kingfisher and his 8 are the only people that are awake and close enough to try to attempt to close this gate, but they can't touch iron.
Yes. Before we mused about why the gates were actually open, if it was a symbol or if it was just tradition, we do get more about why. It says the Ajun Gate was forged from iron, and no member of the Fae, highborn or low, king or peasant, could touch it without suffering. And the Ajun Fae at this point were celebrating the Mayhelen festival, which meant that the gates were kept open for 5 days and 5 nights. It was a symbolic gesture, which was supposed to welcome good fortune into the city and allow trapped spirits to escape out into the cold. Katharine made a point here to say superstitious pricks.
I would like it to point out, I'm pretty sure Kingfisher says that, not Katharine.
Of all the archaic, ridiculous rituals to observe, they leave the gates open for 5 whole days, like clearly opening themselves up to something like this. But it was symbolic. It was like letting out the old, like escape the trapped spirits and welcome in good fortune. So not really good fortune here in this chapter.
I don't disagree with Kingfisher.
You agree with him?
Pricks.
Come on.
So it's obvious what needs to happen, right? The fire sprites aren't there to close the gate. The gates need to be closed. Kingfisher, of course, takes it upon himself that he's going to try to close them. And what is Danya doing? She's whining about it. She's complaining about it. Again, go figure. We, in all of our conversations with Danya, have wondered when she started being so insufferable, like why is she even a part of the Lupo Proelia? And we all wondered if the bonus chapters would fix that in her personality. And for the record, they absolutely don't.
No.
She complains. He's literally trying to get the gate closed. Is she helping? No. Is she complaining about him doing this? Like, I'm sorry, I'm pushing something very heavy that is hurting me, and you want to just talk at me the whole time and not help?
Go push him. Go do something, Danya.
Go away.
Go away. Go away. That's what we would prefer. Go away. Just jump off whatever the mountain is. Bye.
So there's this interesting song that's mentioned here. The Fae who protected the sacred, blessed ore. Okay. So we have the ore being the Quicksilver. We have the ore being the iron. I think it's left a little bit open, but I mean, I thought that was interesting. And then it also goes on, the song goes on to end with, and thus ends the ballad of the king and his 8, right? That was the song about Ajun Gate. That rhymed. So the king and his 8. What's interesting to note here, this was the song that Lorith came up with when he got his sword originally, right? It's the king and his 8. And Lorith came up with the song. And we know throughout the entire book, Kingfisher has sometimes been singularly referred to as the king. And if this is Lorith's song, and he knows that King Belicon is not present, he has nothing to do with this battle. I wonder if The king here is Kingfisher. But then that would beg the question, and his 8, as we
Right.
outlined at the very, very beginning, right? That 8 included Kingfisher. So if it is the battle that includes the king and his 8, who's the 8th then?
Yeah.
If Kingfisher is that king.
Honestly, this is one of those that I have zero unhinged theories about. I
Yeah.
have no freaking clue. My brain goes back and forth, and I'm like, beats me. I have no idea. I have no clue.
I think maybe it just rhymed.
I like that one.
Let's just leave it at that.
There you go.
It rhymed. That's it.
I like that.
And if Loreth remembered the song, he might have been like, oh, wait, guys, I meant to say in his 7 or something else.
Right.
But we'll keep it in. Just keep it in.
Yeah.
We'll do it live.
Gate and 8 rhymed. So
Yeah.
that's what we're going with. So Danya is here. We talked about she's kind of complaining about everything. But we see that she does have her father's god sword in this moment. And we get a name of that sword, which we did not get in the book, right? It is Selenador.
Oh,
If
interesting.
I'm saying that right.
In my head, it was Kaleniador.
I don't know.
We'll find out July 1st when we get the
Kalendor.
Kingfisher bonus chapters.
Kalendor. Kalendor.
Kellendor. Kellendor.
Selendor.
Andor. Celiandor.
Kelly and Adore.
Kelly's door.
Kelly's door.
Kelly's adorable. Let's just make... Good news is we don't have to wait too long. A couple weeks from now, I'm going to get the bonus chapters and we will listen to it and we'll find out. But we do know the sword name.
And it is a little bit more of timeline questioning for me because we had previously thought that the gods had abandoned centuries ago. But this was, again, assuming that our timeline is correct, about 400 years prior to the events of Quicksilver. So, and there is an active god sword here, and it does seemingly have angel's breath too, because the quote is, a flicker of brilliant white light flared into existence, briefly lighting up the dark, and there, 20 feet away, Danya stood, with her sword held high, the flat of the blade rippling with iridescent blue-white flames. That sounds a lot like the description of angel's breath that we had previously gotten. So again, a little bit of some timeline questions for me, but I think we've said it before. I'm not sure if it's because I have a wider theory about it or if it's because there's a timeline issue. I really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be simple as the gods did abandon them, but the god swords didn't fail until later. It simply could just be something like that, because we do find out dramatically at the very end of this one that the time is coming for the god swords to fail. So maybe it just simply is the gods left, and then it took a long time, and now the god swords, for some other reason, are starting to fail. And we do not get clarity as to that reason.
Yeah, maybe the magic just slowly leaves if the gods aren't kind of there to keep them charged up, for lack of a better term.
That song that she presents to us, right? The Fae who protected the sacred blessed ore. There might be something there with the fact that the Fae were supposed to be protecting the Quicksilver. If that is what this sacred ore is, maybe they've abused it. They've gone dark, right? Evil. And maybe that could be why the god swords are now failing until it decides that a new bunch of Fae are somehow worthy again. Speculating.
So let's imagine that Kingfisher is pushing on this iron gate.
Giant.
It feels giant. It feels awful. It's hurting the crap out of him to the point where he passes out. Okay?
Yep.
And where does he wake up, you guys?
With Zareth.
With
the
Zareth.
biggest what the fuck moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I was shocked, like, reading these bonus chapters. I don't think I saw this part coming at all. I think as I was reading it, I thought we were just going to see the battle. But he wakes up and he is with Zareth and Bal and Mithin. Huge. So
why don't Lindsey, because I think this quote is fantastic. Why don't you walk us through this quote?
Yeah.
Before we get to that part, I just want to point out the quote that Kingfisher is saying as he passes out. He says, If I can't fight, you can't let them take take what? Kingfisher? Take we don't know. Take my something? Take Morel? Take I don't know.
I don't think it's Morel because it's not capitalized.
True.
I think it was don't let them take me, as in don't let the feeders get to me.
Oh, take me. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Like turn me into a vampire, turn me into a feeder. Like, because at the end of the day, that's who they're fighting and trying to close the gate against is the feeder. So he doesn't want the feeders to take him, which that sucks because he's about to get in a couple 100 years taken by them anyways.
Yes, that's true. Okay. I took it as that M cut off the word my. So like take my something. Great. So he passes out. He wakes up and he is with Zareth and Bal and Mithrin. So Lindsey, go ahead and give us this quote.
Yeah. So Fisher says, when I touched my fingers to my lips, I expected them to come away red, but instead they dripped silver. Why is there so much of it? What? I found myself in the middle of a sweeping range. Close by, a mighty tree stood atop a knoll, far enough away that I could only just make out the shape of a figure seated on a rock beneath it. There was another figure up there too, slighter, a female by the looks of things, though I couldn't make out her features. I didn't care about the male or whoever he was talking with, though. Yeah, you do, bud.
You sure do.
So let's paint that picture, guys. What's happening here is that he has been transported through the Quicksilver, which is why he touches his lips and there's so much silver, because he is in the Quicksilver pool that surrounds Zareth's large tree. And Zareth and Cerys are sitting there talking. So somehow he has been transported through the Quicksilver and through time to 400 plus years down the road to seeing Zareth and Cerys sitting under the tree talking together.
I love this. I love the fact that this is the first time where we understand that time truly has no meanings to the gods. And Bal and Mithrin, I think there's a quote in here that Bal and Mithrin said, time does not exist in this place. So they can experience this exact same moment for them, but hundreds of years apart. And I do think that detail is important. I think Callie is trying to tell us that time itself is important. And we've talked ad nauseum about timeline issues. And I think this is the teaser of, there's a reason for it. Time is important. Pay attention in the next 4 books.
Yeah. Their quote is, that is the future, Mithrin chided. This is the past, Bal added in a sing-song tone. So they're happening at the same time. Time exists upon itself here, time upon time, upon time, upon time. And then it says, her voice took on a dreamlike quality, blurring around the edges. But that is not your place, not yet. So they're saying, yes, you are watching that in the future, but right now we are in the past.
And I like the wordplay there too, when they say that is the future, because not only is it the future in terms of time, but it's Cerys. That is his future. That is his fated mate. And so I kind of took that both of those ways, and I thought it was kind of poetic.
And he even says that too. So he says that he feels a sudden ache in his chest, more powerful than anything I'd ever experienced before. It overrode everything. So even in that moment of them technically being separated by time, he still feels that mating call to her.
And this is the first time he smells her, though. And so he says, a scent blew to me on the breeze, then electrifying every part of me, like lilies and sugar and light and laughter and smoke. I couldn't fucking breathe. And so what's so crazy to us is we talk about how much scent is very important to the Fae. So he smells her for the very first time here. And then when he meets her later, and he's so obsessed with smell and her and things that perhaps could be on her smell that he doesn't like carrion. This is why he's getting this smell memory back to him hundreds of years in the future when he actually meets her.
Yeah. He's like, don't ruin that smell. That smell is a memory of the first time that I smelled my mate. Don't you mess that up, carrion.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that.
I wonder in the book too, and maybe we just didn't pick up on it, if there is a moment where he pieces together that he saw them on that hill, or maybe we'll get that moment in Brimstone, because we're assuming that in Brimstone, Cerys is going to tell Kingfisher about her time on the hillside with Zareth.
Right.
So
we haven't gotten that yet. You're right.
Wonder, it makes you wonder if Kingfisher is going to connect that moment and go, holy fuck, I saw that. I was there.
I saw you before you were born. I've known you since before you were born. That's wild,
I was
too.
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's one we definitely need.
Yeah, and going back into time, and I know we keep talking about this, but one of the issues with our timeline that we've brought up in a couple of episodes ago was how many times Kingfisher has been through the Quicksilver. And we get an answer here because Balin Mithim asked him that. How many times have you visited us in our realm, Kingfisher? So we know that there was the time when he was a boy. There is the time
occasion.
Yes, there is a time now, but his answer to them is, this is the third time. We brought you here. So there's somewhere in between there a second time, and we're going to kind of assume that that is the time when Kingfisher and Zareth made some sort of deal that Kingfisher is Zareth's champion, because when Zareth and Cerys are together, and he mentions that he had made some sort of deal with Kingfisher and that Kingfisher is Zareth's champion. So there is another instance of him visiting that we are seeing off page.
Mm-hmm.
So first time when he's a boy, he goes to the Quicksilver without a relic. The gods want to just destroy him. Zareth does save him. Quicksilver stays in his eye, but Zareth saves him. Second time, Zareth makes a proposition to Kingfisher. Kingfisher rejects it outright. Third time, this scene right here. And then presumably fourth time, because in this scene from Cerys' perspective, Zareth says, he is my champion. So there has to be at least a fourth time.
Mm-hmm.
But do we see him rejecting it in this time?
He
doesn't talk to Zareth, though.
No. He says, there had been a first occasion when I was just a boy. Bellicon had sent me into the Quicksilver without a relic. Then there had been another time 3 centuries ago when the god of chaos had approached me with a proposition, one that I summarily rejected out of hand. This is the third time. So he had to have come that fourth time with whatever proposition ultimately made Kingfisher Zareth's champion that he accepted. And it's sometime between Ajun and present day book 1 Quicksilver. So Lindsey, this is the biggest thing that I want to give you all the credit in the world for listening to Kelly and I rattle on for literally several episodes, knowing everything you knew because you had already read these bonus chapters and keeping this a secret. So Lindsey, tell us about Nimirelle.
Okay, so Kingfisher wakes up from being transported through time and seeing gods, no big deal, right? So it says, I came back into myself, and when I opened my eyes, a new weight had settled into my freshly healed hands. No longer their hands, but instead a glittering black sword. I frowned down at it, unable to conceal my shock. What's this? It was beautiful in its way. Not traditionally so, it bore no elaborate engraving. Its hilt was bare, but there was a rawness to it that called to me. And when I closed my hands around its grip and held it before me, studying its dark edge, it felt as though a part of my soul had been missing since birth and had finally found its way back to me. An ancient blade, Belle said coyly. She stepped back, linking arms with her sister, and the two of them watched me quietly beaming with approval. I twisted the weapon, feeling the rightness of its weight. What's it called? That's not for us to say. Only a sword's true owner may name it. This one has been waiting for millennia for you, hasn't it, sister? And now I held a god sword in my hands.
Such a good moment. I have so many thoughts about this. Oh my God.
There's so much to unpack. So first of all, he has a god sword now. We now know that his god sword literally came from the gods.
Like actually.
Like actually, literally.
Mm-hmm.
he feels this connection to it. The other big thing is that's not for us to say. It's that use of the plural again. And we've talked so much about the use of the singular and the plural when it comes to Quicksilver. They flat out say it right there.
Yep. There are a couple things in here that also made my senses tingle a little bit, because I got a sense here, and I don't know if you all picked up on this too, that there is even more to this sword than we even find out in these bonus chapters. So it says it's an ancient blade, and she says it coyly. Why being so coy? Bal. Okay, she steps away, and they beam with approval, and it feels right. He said the rightness of its weight. And it's been waiting for millennia for you, hasn't it, sister? So why has it been around for so long, waiting for him? Who was it? Anybody's before it was his? Whose was it? Or like that whole "it's been waiting for millennia for you" also made me go, huh. And the fact that he also says, it felt as though a part of my soul that had been missing since birth had found its way back to me. I don't know. I'm getting some kind of like familial connection or something, like there's something else happening here with this sword to me. And I think that these are little Easter eggs for us to find out even more about the sword than, like I said, than we even get in these chapters.
Totally agree.
Do you think it could have anything to do with like his mother? Right?
It might, like, I'm feeling some kind of family connection of some of some kind. I know.
But think about it though. His mother has been literally dead Everlane's entire life, which is millennia. Everlane is like 1400 years.
That is true.
That's been a millennia. So we know his mother has done so much with like gifting him with different objects to protect him. And she's just so much more than what we even realize now. Like we've speculated, her power.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there is,
I would like that.
Maybe something more here, and maybe his mother has been involved in even this one.
I would love that. I definitely am sensing a connection to something else that we don't know. I think it could be some kind of what is in his blood, like his own family or history. I would absolutely love it if it was somehow connected to Adina, because I love her.
So we find out in part 3 that he gets his shadow magic from his mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a quote somewhere in Quicksilver where like wisps of smoke would come off of Nimirelle. So maybe there is some kind of association.
Oh, I like that. I hadn't put that together. Yeah.
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 Sneaky.
That ends part 1 for us. But in case it wasn't very clear, at the end of part 1, Quicksilver was literally melting because he was touching the iron, and the goddesses healed him. So they bring him back to start part 2 of the gate has been closed and they have healed Kingfisher.
Now we start part 2 and we get some more information. Kingfisher is back in the battle. He gives us a little bit of background about the Erythian Knights. They are the warriors of this region. And they are just as brave and loyal and kind of formidable as him and his Lupo. And he mentions that they are sworn to a higher purpose and would never abandon their posts, not even for this. He also starts to tell us that the god sword that he just got from Balan Mithin is in his hands, buzzing frantically as if it had been waiting for this moment for an eternity. Love that connection too, about, if this has been waiting for him for millennia. So something about this sword is like expectant, which I like, personifies the sword a bit. He says that the sword wanted me to lay its edge against something foul. It wanted to enact justice, but the accent came in there.
Yeah.
Inaugural. But the inaugural blood I spilled across this blade would not be a feeder's blood. I was going to baptize it with something far more legendary. And a callback here, because justice is one of Fisher's rune tattoos.
So why do we think this god sword, and I emphasize God, why do the gods want justice against the dragons? Why do the gods want, because right, I feel like the god sword is part of the way for the gods to enact their will in real life. So why do the gods want to go against the dragon, enact justice against the dragon?
So I didn't read it specifically as it wanted the dragon. I read it as it wanted evil.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, we know that the gods left the world behind because there was so much evil happening and there wasn't enough justice and there wasn't enough fight against it. So this to me is like a callback of almost like a test, like it wants to fight that evil and it wants to be part of that fight, which I think is why in the end of Quicksilver, we start to see more of the God Sword's reawakening and we start to see that power because we are seeing the battle of more and more people and creatures joining this huge fight, right?
So it's not necessarily them battling against a dragon. The dragon is just a personification of evil itself.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes
Exactly.
a lot more sense. I like that.
Yeah.
So then we have Morelle. Morelle is Renfis's twin, and she is killed by the dragon.
It's heartbreaking.
Truly. It is so well written, this scene.
And I remember reading it and thinking, so I remember reading part 1 and learning within sentences that Renfis even had a twin, which was complete news, and being like blown away by that and thinking it makes so much more sense why he treats Cerys the way that he does because he loses his sister. And so when this happens, I feel like those moments are made even more devastating of God, it's just so awful. Like we just learned about her existence and then she's just like ripped away from us.
Yeah.
And we also get an extreme description of Renfis's power. His emotion here is insane. So much so because we know he has this big light magic, right? It's so big. It's going to literally consume him in his quest for vengeance that Fisher creates, we find out, his second shadow gate. He has to get there faster to them. And it's interesting to us because we just think of him as creating shadow gates willy-nilly whenever he wants, and come to find out that this is only his second one he'd ever been able to conjure up before, right? The first one, he says, is when they found Lorith, and Kingfisher gave Lorith a piece of his soul when Lorith was dying. And now this is the second one, and he does it to save Ren because Ren is so consumed by his grief and anger that he's literally being consumed by his own power. And it's interesting. We kind of find out that magic, right, can literally destroy the body. Organs
can burn out.
Souls can be shred to nothing so that you are literally not even a piece of yourself. You can lose your soul to your own magic. And so it conjures the shadow gate to save his best friend who is consumed by this grief. And it's all of that was a lot of emotion. Reading through it.
I also think that this is a little bit of foreshadowing for the burnout effect, for us to see how a really powerful person could burn out in books to come. Because think about our girl Cerys is now basically like one of the most powerful beings ever created. And this is kind of a warning to her that we know what the effects of overusing that power could potentially be. So this is totally foreshadowing.
Absolutely.
Burn away your fucking soul.
Yeah. She's going to have to learn how to control all of this new magic. Just like we saw her learning how to just command the Quicksilver, she's going to have some movie montage scenes learning how to control all the rest of this crazy magic.
Absolutely. To show you the magnitude of Ren's power, apparently he used it to hit the side of Omnamshacry piercing the thick scales and spearing the beast between his ribs. Nothing had ever pierced dragon scale before. Nothing. So Renfist, kind of a badass, really powerful.
Yeah. And
Ooh.
it's his light magic too,
Light.
right?
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yes.
So when we think about like darkness and evil and dragons and all of those words that go along with it, it is light that pierces it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool little like dichotomy of light versus
like
darkness there.
Mm.
Well, so my question, are the twins just in his head?
I think it's more like he's having all these internal thoughts about the blade in his hand, and I guess he has this impression of this. I don't think they're actively saying to him.
Yes. Okay. I've got a thing here too. So, quote from Kingfisher, as if the twins knew precisely what I was thinking, the iron sword in my hand seemed to buzz with energy growing heavy, a reminder, a gentle nudge. We aren't in the business of affecting the fares of lesser creatures, fierce heart. We did as much as we could. We armed you with the tool you need to end this. We gave you the sword. So perfect example here of what we've talked about before with is the Quicksilver and is the sword and all of this directly a part of the gods. And this absolutely is. Like the sword in his hand moves, and it is the nudge of him saying the twins knew that I was thinking, and the twins are channeling the power.
Mm-hmm.
So we've also kind of wondered if God swords are just God swords in general, or if God swords are connected to specific certain gods. So if that is the case, then I feel like this God sword is specifically connected to Baal and Mithrin.
Of course. Those girls are so hard up. They want Fisher as their playmate. Of course they claim him. This one is ours.
I love it. And I do kind of like the fierce heart too. It is very different from all of the other nicknames that we've heard from Kingfisher in the past. Like this is a little bit more regal to me, a little bit more champion to me. And so I do think it's an interesting nickname here.
And something else you mentioned in that quote, it clarifies that his sword is also made of iron. And as we know, Fae cannot touch iron. But a god sword that belongs to a Fae, they can touch it. But what's interesting to me, I know you cannot touch a god sword. Danya proved you cannot touch somebody's god sword. But remember when Saris touches Fisher's sword and her hand burns? It's very similar to Kingfisher when he touched the Iron Gate and his hands began to burn. And I wonder if that's a little bit of a call out perhaps to her Fae blood, right? Fae can't touch iron. Or maybe it's just simply of the ignore the iron, you cannot touch a god
because
sword.
It's a god sword.
I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's actually new to me. I had not made that connection before of you can't touch someone else's sword, but you can't touch iron to begin with. So are all swords made of iron? Is this one specifically?
I feel like they're calling out this one with iron because of all the metals, I don't really feel like iron was brought up a lot, right?
So what is Saris making the other swords with?
Steel imbued with Quicksilver.
And is there no iron in Zilvarin either?
We don't know. But also, if there's only humans, supposedly, in Zilvarin.
But if there was iron in Zilvarin and she touched iron now, and if it was that connection.
I'm thinking a lot of thoughts right now.
Yeah.
So many thoughts.
If you're smelting iron, if you're forging iron, you're not going to touch it with a bare hand.
That's true. Hot. It's a little bit hot.
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot of thoughts right now. I had not previously made that connection about this sword specifically being iron, no one being able to touch each other's swords, Fae not being able to touch iron. Like that is all connecting in my brain in a way that I need to work out.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, and just because I
Yeah.
know somebody would probably call us on this and say, well, steel is an alloy of iron and carbon. Okay, fine.
But still,
somebody's got to be able to touch a sword.
yeah, there's just a lot
There's a lot
there. There's a lot there.
We don't have answers. We're just musing.
We noodle a lot.
I don't know anything.
noodle a lot.
I don't have any answers. Okay.
Callie, call us. Callie, call us. Okay.
This is just talking about okay, we find out a very interesting word. Disgorge.
Ooh.
So he doesn't, Omnamshacry doesn't just spew fire. He disgorges the brimstone in him. And apparently large drakes would be able to disgorge twice before they need to refill their fire chambers. Not sure how they refill. But he is disgorging brimstone all over the place. Omnamshacry is just going
disgorge
crazy right now. And
I love that word.
That word, it's not an important detail, but I had to bring up the fact that disgorge that's a word.
That is a word.
This yucky word.
It is
That's
yuck.
a yucky one.
And you can do it twice.
Okay.
And this is in part 2 is where we find out what you said before, Catherine, that the reason why Omnamshacry wants to kill them is because he wants revenge because the Lupo killed a dragon before. So we do find that out here in part 2 in this chapter.
And then we get the heartbreak.
Ugh. So he says, so remember, Nimirelle has just died. Kingfisher says, I loosed a cry and screamed my defiance to the heavens, daring them to take this victory from us. Nimirelle, Nimirelle. The old fae came out as both challenge and curse, for revenge, for retribution, for my friend who the beast had taken, and for those who remained to mourn the loss of her ever afterward. Nimirelle, for Morel. Ugh. The blade sank home, driving upward, and I felt it cut through flesh. I braced for the fire, but the fire never came. A rush of energy surged upward through me, through my blood, my bones and tissue, and it was more power than I had ever known. It wasn't my power. It didn't belong to the sword either. Blade and body combined and acted as a conduit to a deeper reservoir, and through us, the vengeance of the gods themselves poured forth. It is such an incredible scene here. It is so touching to know that this is how his sword got its name. He is literally seeking revenge and vengeance for his friend that just died at the hands of this battle, at the hands of this dragon. So powerful. Cried so many tears, hot tears down my face at this point.
I'm drawing a picture of Kingfisher. This is my dramatic interaction
Okay.
of Kingfisher.
The Harry Potter lightning blade or the lightning scar.
That's power.
Oh,
there's the
that's
power.
Just standing there being like,
yes.
and all the power just streaming around them.
Yep.
And I mean,
there it is.
That has to be angel's breath right there.
Nimirelle.
Also.
Nimirelle.
Okay.
I cannot wait to hear this in the audiobook version.
Because I can really, really picture this, right? Like this paints a vivid, such a powerful image of him standing there. It's almost like at the top of the hill with this sword in his hand, then all this power channeling through him and just driving it up into the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
I freaking love it.
So we just get all the other people are also fighting the dragon at the same time, right? I think that Danya has loosed an energy burst from her blade's tip. She brought it sinking down, but the blade is just glancing off the dragon's scale. Ren sent a charge of energy, but it's doing nothing. Either its energy is completed or it's just not enough energy to crack through the dragon.
We do get this quote, though, that is interesting. It says, you know, he was depleted. Like he didn't know why nothing was happening to the dragon. But he says, or the dragon was somehow blocking him. But that wasn't possible, though. A dragon had no innate magic. But I like that. I like that little thing there. Is it an Easter egg? Is it just like letting you know, no, there's something else happening because dragons have no magic? I liked that little couple of words.
Mm-hmm. That is true, because that actually is, and I'm glad you pointed it out. That's our first example. That's the first time the author is telling us dragons in this world don't have magic.
Right. Yep.
Well, they don't have, let's think about that. She points out that they don't have innate magic.
Magic born within them.
Right. But does that mean that they have some sort of other magic?
How do you have magic?
Could be gifted magic.
Like magic is gifted to them, or they've stolen magic somehow. Like, why point out, why say they don't have innate magic? Why not just say dragons don't have magic?
Yeah. And we know that magic skills can be gifted. Kingfisher has gifted her with sight, or, you know, things like that. So it's possible.
You're right, because innate does mean something you're born with. I got the impression it was for emphasis, just something that is just not inherent within dragon. So if this dragon has it, it is not from the essence of dragon kind. It would have to be from some external source.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because I got the impression that I overread every word.
So do I.
So if you're going to put the word innate in there, I'm going to think about why you said that.
100%.
And I might be wrong, and I might be stressing myself out for no reason, but I'm going to look at those words and be like, why'd you say that, Callie?
Why'd you say it?
Why'd you say it?
Why'd you got to go say that? You need to calm down. You're being too loud.
And then he gets swallowed by a dragon.
Whoops. It's got to stink in there too.
Oh God.
Think about like the brimstone and sulfur coming out of his mouth. That is nasty.
So Fisher is swallowed by a dragon, but his sword really wants vengeance, and he is in the mouth of the beast and stabs him, and the dragon dies. He
disgusting.
Wins. So now let's just set this scene. This is an interesting scene. He's literally still stuck in the mouth of a dead dragon, and he's waiting hours for his friends to get him out of the dragon's mouth. And so, Lindsey, why don't you tell us this last little ending bit about Nimirelle?
He gets a visit.
Yes. So he is stuck in the dragon's mouth for hours, which totally makes sense. I mean, think about how nothing else pierces the dragon. They have to get in and save him, right?
Yeah.
So he is visited by the spirit of Nimirelle while he's waiting for them. Yep. So, and it does show too, like if he's visited by her spirit, he's got to be very hurt. He's probably on the brink of death here, maybe hallucinating. She's trying to like keep him grounded is the way I saw this. Like he's exhausted after this battle, and she's trying to keep him grounded. So he's visited by the spirit of Nimirelle, and she tells him the first thing that you need to know is that the god swords will start failing soon. It'll happen over time, but it will start soon. Eventually, all of the swords will lie dormant apart from yours. I've bound a part of myself to it, a small kernel of magic that my soul possessed. Whatever it was worth now belongs to that sword. It will help you when you need it. And anyway, like this, I am still a part of the Lupo Proelia. I'll always be with you, and Renfist too. It's what I want. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Again, tons to unpack here, that she knows that the god swords are going to start dying. She's warning him. I have questions about how she knows, that we'll talk about soon.
Well, she's dead. You should be allowed a little bit of knowledge if you have to die.
That's the least you can get.
The least she deserves.
But I understand what Lindsey's saying of like, who did she visit with? Who told her these? We know that she visits from the next piece with Adina. But
I
who
think-
else does she know?
I
You
think
think Adina?
I think it is Adina.
That makes sense
Yeah.
because she oracled
They're-
it.
And they're both dead. They can talk.
They can really
no,
talk.
I think who he's talking to is Adina here.
Oh, you don't think it's Morel?
I think
But-
that the spirit, I think that Morel, who just died and whose spirit is probably extremely close to this plane, right, with him in
Mhm.
it, I kind of wonder if this is actually Morel speaking to him, or is this somehow being channeled through Adina?
Well, Adina is absolutely giving her opinions through Morel, because Morel in the next paragraph says she being his mother. But I hear you.
Yeah.
They're definitely
Yeah.
talking.
She says, Morel tells Fisher more after she says a second thing I need to tell you is that your mother wants you to know how much she loves you. She's with you too. She will always be with you. And lastly, she wants me to warn you. She needs you to guard your true name. She says that your life depends on it. What?
Well, we already knew that. In a sense, we knew the importance of names. It's been something that we've talked about a lot with this book, and that shockingly, a lot of people haven't caught up on is that Kingfisher is not his real name. I think one of the biggest complaints that I see online about this book is that they don't like the name Kingfisher, which I think is whatever. But the important part is that Kingfisher is not his name.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And what is it about his true name that is going to reveal something, or that is keeping him safe because his life depends on people not knowing his true name?
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
a lot.
And we find out in part 3 that his mother has been calling him Kingfisher since he was young. So he's always been called Kingfisher because his mother hid his name and called him that since he was a child. So none of his friends would know his name because that's just how he's always been referred to. But he himself knows what his true name is. And so he's being told here, continue to keep it hidden.
Yep.
Which is, it is interesting because in Fae culture, you do that anyways. So the fact that, I mean, that's something that he would have grown up knowing. So the fact that it's, you almost wonder if it's being reminded to him in this moment, or if it's really by proxy being reminded to us of how important that is going to become later, you know?
True.
Bit of both.
Probably, yeah. And again, going back to Morel, you know, she knows the god swords are going to start failing soon. She just died. That's a lot of information to take in very quickly if she did take it in whatever other plane she was on. But she's putting her own self and an own part of her soul into the sword, and that is how the sword Nimirelle gets his name and continues to stay alive throughout the god swords failing. So
Hey, can you guys just imagine every time that sword's name is brought up, Renfis is reminded of his sister. And when Renfis tells Saris, Nimirelle gave Fisher its power at a cost.
Yeah.
The magnitude now of us understanding what that quote truly means is huge.
Yeah. The little bit of magic that was within his sister is now living on within this sword. Like
her very soul.
Right. That is heavy and insane, and makes me love Ren even more, to be really honest. I loved Ren before, love him even more now. I need a Ren book. What do we think? Can we Cassian this? Can we get a Ren book?
We need a Ren book. I want a Carrion book.
We need a Carrion book. Yeah.
Don't we kind of know, like, am I making that up, or did she do an interview saying that, or was that our guessing, that they're not all going to be?
Yes, she
Saris
gave
and Kingfisher.
She gave an interview saying that it's technically a trilogy, and then 2 books where a different main character is the focus. So
Callie,
we do know that.
We need
So we
Carrion,
don't
we
know.
need Renfist.
Oh, all right. So part 3, and this one actually gets a title: The Fox, the Boots, the Dress. And in this scene, Fisher is in his family home. He is going into his mother's old bedroom to get a pair of boots for Carrion, because we know that he doesn't have any, hanging off the side of that horse for days, shoeless.
I love that detail.
I know.
The detail of
I know.
Carrion losing his boots is so important.
right.
We get a bonus chapter.
We get a whole
also
bonus chapter
dedicated
to
to
get
that
him those
detail.
boots. Cover those feet, Carrion.
So funny.
And he's also looking for a dress for Sarah. So he goes into the room. He's reminiscing. He's having a really hard time smelling the scents of the room, remembering what it used to smell like and what's not there anymore. So there's a whole lot of nostalgia here. He talks a little bit about his relationship with Archer, and how Archer has been around for a long time, that his face was actually one of his earliest memories. So lots of really cute moments of the relationship between the two of them. You can tell that Archer really loves him and took a lot of care for Fisher. And he mentions that when his father had failed to return from Zilvarin and his mother had locked herself in the library for 6 days. Why is she in the library? And hadn't been able to face the world because of the grief, that it was Archer who really took care of him and, you know, told him stories of his people and did his best to help him through this moment.
Oh, that's an interesting point, Kelly.
She went to the library.
Because Kingfisher is just assuming she went to the library because she was consumed with grief. She could have been oracling in that library.
She was researching. She was looking into stuff. I bet you she was like, why is he not back? What's going on? I need to be in the library. Work needs to be done. So that's my guess.
Or getting all these new visions, because now, I mean, obviously she is heartbroken. We
maybe
know
writing stuff down, because we know she writes her.
Yeah, but if she's getting all of these new visions of what she has to do in the future, she might also just be doing that. We know his library has this library all about Quicksilver. Maybe she could have been doing a lot of stuff in the background that he just didn't even know about.
Yep. So he's in the room. He stops at the center of the bedroom. He says, the room that had once belonged to my mother and my father. And we also find out here that his mother has referred to him as Kingfisher since he was young, which Katharine said back in part 2.
So yeah, when the fact that he makes a point of, when he comes into the bedroom, he makes a point in his head of saying the room that once belonged to my mother and my father. I got just the impression from his musings in this bonus chapter that his parents loved each other very, very, very dearly and were very, very, very close. It also just got me thinking about Sarris's musings about Elroy. And obviously, I have my theory that Finran is Elroy. So assuming that is correct, because obviously if it's not correct, then this goes out the window. But if Finran is Elroy, I know that Sarris has talked a lot about Elroy and her own mother being very close. But now, once I'm reading these bonus chapters and just kind of thinking back on Sarris's descriptions, I kind of get more of a sense that if Elroy loved Sarris's mother, it could have been a love that might not have necessarily been a romantic love, right? It could have been a love of a newfound family, if you will, right? Especially if Elroy is Finran, and especially if Finran has seen drawings from his wife about who Sarris is. I could see him just getting close to the family for that reason alone. So I guess I'm just now kind of questioning if there wasn't really a romantic love between Elroy and Sarris's mother, but just a newfound family, really.
Yep. Yeah. And so Fisher goes to the wardrobe and he fights the urge to run his hand along the sleeve of his father's shirts, says he refuses to linger in the past, and he goes to get what he came for, which is the boots. Black, strong, good leather, the kind of boots that would last a male a long time indeed if they were taken care of correctly. I kind of love that he's giving Carrion the boots of the man who saved him and took him to Zilvarin, and now he's back home and he's getting his boots to walk around in.
And think about that quote that Sarris had said, like right at the end of Quicksilver, where she's like, his father had been the one to bring Carrion through, and it's all starting to come together in ways that we can't even imagine yet. Boom.
Full circle. Like
Boots.
These boots. These are the boots of someone who is going to rule the region.
Yes.
And
the guy
here
that saved your life.
Yep, and here are his boots. So you can continue your journey with his literal boots. He gave you the boots on your feet so you can take the next step.
Yeah.
Poetic.
And it is funny, like Fisher takes the boots to Carrion. Carrion does not even realize, and Fisher doesn't even realize the importance of their connection here to Carrion and the boots of Finran. And we get that moment that we have speculated before about wanting to see that aside with like Carrion in the bath scene and everything. But Kingfisher literally brings him the boots in this moment and says, you can only have them if you take a bath, because he still smells Cerys on him and he absolutely can't stand it. And it's funny because, again, in the beginning of this bonus chapter, he says he was annoyed because Cerys' scent was starting to get in the way of his mother's scent that had always been around this house. And so not only, like, there's such a connection there of, yes, it's the scent of his mate, but he also does not want to smell that scent on Carrion.
Right.
So
yeah.
gotta be like such confusing feelings for him to be feeling all of those things at the same time.
I love when Kingfisher says that his blood began to boil. When he tells him you need to take a bath, he said he'd had the human. He had touched her and kissed her and presumably taken her, and he still felt the need to look at other females. There was something deeply wrong with him. Even if I hadn't learned how to guard myself against water magic, I would never have taken that female's hand so easily, not after knowing the human. Like, I love the fact that he's like, I truly cannot fathom how you could be with Cerys and then ever be tempted to go anywhere else, because she is everything. It's like you're seeing just how deeply he cares for her in this moment. Love it. I love Kingfisher so much.
And again, we have talked in the past about Adina seeing Cerys and her coming. She oracled Cerys coming into Kingfisher's life, but we always kind of wondered, like, did she see her as a fae before Zareth interfered? Did we see her in Kingfisher's life the way she is now? Did she have fae ears? Because we know Cerys turns into a fae. Like, where in the timeline of Cerys's life did Adina conjure up these images of her? And maybe it doesn't matter, but here he's looking through the dresses, and I love this. It says that as soon as I saw it, I knew for certain, he's looking at one particular dress, that this wasn't one of my mother's dresses. The material was midnight black, the fabric sheer liquid silk. The neckline was low, and there was a staggering slit up the side of the skirt that would undoubtedly travel from ankle to hip. My father would have never commissioned this for my mother. It simply wasn't her style. I could picture it being her style, though, as in Cerys. It was a maddening article of clothing designed to flatter and accentuate every curve and plane of the body. I had no idea where it had come from or how long it had been sitting there in that dressing chamber amongst my mother's things, but this had been for Cerys Vane.
Yeah. And
so cool.
The mother's voice says, hers, my love, these are hers. It's so good. It's so good.
She oracled to have clothing ready for Cerys.
Imagine
so that first night that Kingfisher says, you will have dinner with me, and she's wearing this dress.
So much more meaning to it now.
Yes. I love it. I love it.
And was that also the moment where that's the first time she sat at the seat of the woman of the house too, right?
It was
in
the
that
first
dress.
Night.
There are just layers upon layers upon layers of magnitude here.
Yes.
I love it.
I love that he goes then to drop off the dress in her room, but then she comes in, and so he has to hide somewhere. But as he's comedically trying to hide, he's giving us insights into his own power. So he describes his magic. He said, I had thrown out a wave of magic that did not come easily to me. The magic I had inherited from my father, the glamoring magic of Finrin. The shadows had come from my mother. They were there at my fingertips whenever I needed them these days, but the gift of illusion existed deeper within the well of my power. I had to reach for it, and it wasn't always there when I tried to grasp hold of it. Today, thankfully, it was. And so he conjured this bathroom for her to ultimately bathe in. But I thought that was it's a funny scene, and we also get information.
Yeah.
So it's like 2-for-1 sale right there.
I honestly thought that earlier in during the whole book, for whatever reason, when I knew that Finrin had this glamour magic, I only associated it with glamoring what you physically look like. Like a Tonks, right? Like you can change your hair, you can change the way your face looks, but like you change the way people look. This fact that it's illusion and you can create rooms that don't actually exist and you can use, it's not just like smoke and mirrors and then they're gone. That's really huge, right? Like that's going to come back, I think.
I want to know why Saris never says like, hey, one time I like used a bathroom and now like that bathroom
Where did it go
there anymore?
She was so tired she didn't even mention it. That's so funny.
Okay, but that actually is really, really funny.
Right? like you don't say it because maybe you think you're going insane. Could you imagine if you're like, there was a bathroom there, I swear it. No, I'm not going to say that out loud. People are going to be like, nope.
Saris would say it though.
She probably would.
She would not keep that. I'd be like, yo, am I crazy? Or was like, did I have an ensuite before? And like, now I don't have an ensuite. Like, what's up with that?
That is really, really funny.
I love that so much. I love that.
So this is where in his musings, we find out for certain that at least at this time, Fisher, he knows Saris is his mate.
Yep.
He's thinking in his head. And even if my mother's journal was wrong and she wasn't my mate, I would still see to it that she packs the flesh onto her bones while she was bound to me. So he's saying, even if my mother's journals were wrong and she wasn't my mate, so he knows. He knows right
take
here,
care of her.
This is my mate.
Yep.
Clarified for us.
Yep. And then what else does Fisher know about the future? He says, I could get through this dinner. I could be an absolute pig. I could make her hate me just enough to make all of this bearable for the both of us. And when the time came, I could send Saris Fane back to her realm. I didn't have any other choice because she would never be truly safe here with me. All right. What do we think he's foreshadowing? Is it
I think it's the effects of the Quicksilver. Yeah. Like, I think he knows that the effects of the Quicksilver, he does not want him to be connected to her, or really her to be connected to him at all, because he knows that he's kind of slowly going insane.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want that bond to lose your mate.
Yeah.
He also is thinking of himself as going insane, like the dog that Belicon described them as.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so that's why she's not safe with him.
Yeah.
Yes. It wasn't a safety in like a bigger sense of like something's, but I mean, think about it. It could be he knows that there are feeders and vampires at this point, and
there's a war happening.
There's a war happening. He knows the connection between Mandra and Belicon and Malcolm at this point. Like, think about all the information that he has in his head that he cannot share with his friends or his family. So, and he, in his mind, he was going to sacrifice himself to stop that. So where he is in his current timeline of his life is there's a lot of shit going on, and I'm going to die probably stopping it. And I don't want her to be connected with me.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Once again, Kingfisher sacrificing.
Ultimate. Yeah. He's the ultimate reluctant hero for sure.
One thing I like about this quote too in part 3 is, for me, it gives me, we know in Quicksilver that he did all this on purpose. He was kind of a jerk to her. He wanted her to hate him. And because we get through the conversation that they have towards the end of the book, I like seeing his thoughts from his own perspective, because to me, it really solidifies, one, just how hard it was for him to do that. And two, like just how much he believes that he is not good for her and that he needs to like prevent, like you kind of see that struggle, that like tortured Kingfisher. And I think I can give him even more grace because of this scene than you might in other scenes. I always give him grace because I freaking love him. But some people are like, no, Kingfisher, like that's not okay. I feel like this scene helps you humanize him, but just make him more understandable, you know?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Like
Mhm.
you get this perspective from him of his own inner conflict. So you know that he just didn't mean it. And
Yeah.
I think we needed to know that he didn't mean it for us to
Yeah.
just feel more emotionally invested in him.
Yeah, he was just doing the best that he knew how, you know. He's not perfect. Faye are not perfect. They have to make decisions and sometimes they make a wrong choice or don't read the situation right, and it's just, you know, he made a choice that was the best he could do with the info that he had.
Yeah. And I think it kind of wraps up like why we get the stories in these 3 bonus chapters that we do get, because chapters 1 and chapter 2 are very different from what we see in chapter 3. But I think they give us this whole vision of who Kingfisher is as a whole person. Obviously, it's from his perspective, which is different from the book. We see his battle side and we see kind of that family heart side as well. So it's such a wrap up of his character and how he thinks. And we've guessed how he thinks and what his motivations are. But now it kind of is confirming from his perspective and
Right.
his words the truth of why he operates the way he does, which is so important going into the next book, right?
1000% agree.
Could the story and the canon of the story make sense without these bonus chapters? Sure. But there's such a bridge of motivations and why those motivations are important as we move into Brimstone.
These were not just easy, fun, extra. I think you said in our very last episode, Lindsey, that these are canon learnings. Like
Yeah.
it adds to it so much, and it's not just like a fun extra. Oh, that was fun. Like this changes some of the perceptions that we have and the opinions that we have.
Doesn't change my opinion on Danya, but other than that.
Except for that one.
Oh my
Completely
God,
agree.
Callie, please do not give her a book.
Well, that is a wrap on the bonus chapters of Quicksilver. So thank you so much for joining us for book club this week. Next time, we will be doing a wrap up of our thoughts for the entire book 1 of the Fane Alchemy series. It's wild. So be sure to join us for that next Fantasy Friday. Happy reading. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.